It's time for another episode of Northwest Arkansas's award-winning soccer television show coming to your TV right here, right now. We've been off your TV for a little while due to Thanksgiving break, so we've got a lot to cover in this week's episode. Be sure to stay tuned. You're watching In the Net. It's another episode of In the Net. No Brett here on the panel with us today.
We've got a little more. We've got some more.
Muy triste. So I'm having to take over the reins as the host this week. We'll see how that works out, changing it up a little bit. He will be in the show though. Don't worry. In fact,
we can't ever
Eric,
get rid of him.
let's check it out right now. He's got a little recap for us. Like I said earlier, it's been a full week since we've talked any soccer for you. So Brett's got a little bit of a recap for us. Take it away.
Hello once again, soccer fans. It's been a while since we've last met, so here's what we've missed. Congrats to Uruguay, Algeria, France, Greece, and Croatia for all advancing to the World Cup. Portugal also went in with a very impressive victory over Sweden, and all thanks to a fantastic performance from this beautiful man. Also in is some country named Mexico, who I know is very, very thankful for a certain country that got them there. And then there's Ghana, who rounds out the World Cup field. They defeated former United States head coach Bob Bradley and his Egypt squad. And I know Ghana being in the World Cup has most U.S. fans saying, "No, God!" Now to the UEFA is also in full swing as well. There's still one game left, and there are too many groups to name, so here's a picture of how each group stands. Got it? Good. Now let's catch up on the European leagues. And surprise, Barcelona is tied with Atletico Madrid atop La Liga, while Bayern Munich is running through the Bundesliga. What a surprise. Juventus is in front of Serie A, and the Arsenal is 4 points ahead in the Premier League.
Say what?
Yeah, the Arsenal's up 4 points.
Yeah, sure, right.
Yes, they are. Is it that hard to believe? But enough with this foreign stuff. On to the United States of America, where the people are free and the soccer has been... Well, the United States women's team ended their season on a very high note, while the men's team, well, they tried really hard. They tied Scotland 0-0 and lost 1-0 to Austria. But hey, at least we're not this guy. And that now leads me to the MLS Final, where Sporting KC will look to win its second cup, while RSL will look to avoid being defeated in a final once again like they were earlier this year to a truly great team and organization who everybody loves and has more titles than anyone. Regardless, I think my time is up, guys. Back to you.
So much, Brett. We will hear from you once again later in the program. That was a lot.
He just had to get that DCU reference in
Oh,
there,
he had
didn't
to. Yeah, didn't he? That was a lot that we missed over the past week.
It was quite a bit.
A lot of soccer action. But he mentioned the MLS Cup Finals. Obviously, we're going to talk about that. This guy right here is pretty stoked about
Pretty
it.
excited about that.
You boys, Sporting KC
right.
coming in after that horrendous first leg. Can we label it horrendous?
It was pretty bad.
It was pretty terrible between Houston and KC. They finally got the Dynamo, what we can say, the monkey off their back, I guess is what we could say. But both teams, interesting roads there. You know, Real Salt Lake having to go through Portland, tough in the
Knocked off
conference
the
finals.
defending champs, too.
Knocked off defending champs LA. And, you know, your boys, Sporting KC, also pretty tough when you have to reface a team that you've seen so many times for them there.
Right.
So looking at these two teams, quite the journey in the playoffs. Which team do you think had the tougher road to the final?
As far as quality of teams go, I think Real Salt Lake definitely, because they had to take down the Galaxy, like we said, the defending champs.
Right, and that's never easy.
They beat Portland, who is a really good young and up-and-coming team. They've got a lot of young talent. Caleb Porter's done an excellent job as their coach there. He's been named coach of the MLS this season, which I think is pretty rightfully so.
I don't think anyone can argue with that.
Right.
Whatsoever.
Whereas Sporting KC, yes, they knocked off Houston, and that was an absolutely huge deal for Sporting KC to do that because
it's not like Houston's a bad team.
No, they're a very good team, but they're not at the level that the Western Conference teams are at. And that first round matchup for Sporting Kansas City was a young, really a New England team that exceeded just about everybody's expectations.
Yeah, without question. And I think anytime your road to the final has to go through Portland,
right,
that makes it's
a very tough place
much tougher. It's so hard to win there, and the fact that they went in, they had a pretty sizable lead.
Right.
I mean, you have to give them that, and when you consider that away goals
they
don't mean
still
anything.
won on the road, though.
Yeah, exactly. But you take into account that away goals don't mean anything. Sure, you would think maybe they go into it feeling a little more relaxed,
right,
because they do have a bigger lead. But anytime you go into a place like that with a crowd like that,
especially
it's almost impossible.
With such a sense of desperation that Portland had going into that game, because that Timbers Army is always fired up. They're always ready to go. When you put the fact that they feel like they need to help the team out, put the team on their back like they did, it creates an even bigger atmosphere.
Yeah, and both of these teams, we haven't seen them play in a while because a nice little break between those conference finals.
There was the FIFA break within the conference finals, too.
Cup finals. So it's kind of like, why are we waiting so long? I understand that it takes a lot to get set up, but question is here, do you think maybe they should play it a week earlier or leave it as is? Is there really a solution here?
Honestly, I don't mind having the week between the conference final and the MLS Cup like they have that we didn't have this past Thanksgiving weekend. But
Right.
I get that it's a FIFA break, but you still don't need to have that week like they had in between the two conference finals.
Here's what I'm saying. Why not play it on Thanksgiving?
Yeah, play the MLS Cup on Thanksgiving. You don't have that break within the conference finals. You push everything up a week. You don't have 14 days in between those two legs of those conferences.
And I get you're planning a conference final, okay? That takes a league final. That takes a lot. That's a lot of planning, but you're kind of geared for that the whole year.
I mean,
you have the whole entire year and season to plan for it. You should kind of have things.
It's not like either one of these teams either would have trouble selling tickets.
Oh, absolutely not. Two great fan bases.
Absolutely great fan bases. I believe the Sporting Kansas City tickets go on sale Tuesday.
Yeah, it's gonna be sold out in minutes.
They will sell out by noon.
And if you do it on Thanksgiving, you create a new tradition, a new MLS tradition. Why not? I mean, I understand that you're fighting against NFL on those days. I understand that.
Well,
but why not give it a shot?
Put it on Friday when there really wasn't as much going on.
That too.
You don't have the
There's
NFL.
A lot of options here, and especially during that, holiday time, I feel like maybe a lot of families opt into that, wanting to give it a shot, and maybe viewership goes up even more. I don't know. It's just a suggestion. I think it would work out a lot better.
We should call the Don on that one.
We should call up Don, our man Don, and try to get that figured out. But these two teams, two fantastic coaches, without a doubt. If you're picking, who are you taking here?
This is a really tough one.
It is tough.
This is because these are two excellent
very
coaches,
hard.
And they're two coaches that have their style and they stick to it.
And it's also interesting because they're two coaches that don't really have all-stars. Those big name players that they went out and signed.
They don't have the big names.
Drafted.
But they have excellent players.
Yeah, without a doubt, top quality players. But they're not the players that you're seeing carrying the flagship of the MLS. Right.
They don't go out like the big. They're small market teams. They talked about this is the first time the MLS hasn't had a top 10 market in the MLS Cup.
Right.
So these are two smaller market teams that built their teams from the ground up, and I think that's something that it's really interesting to more soccer fans that it's not teams buying their way into the MLS
and I
Cup.
think that also adds something to the coaching job you have to do.
Absolutely.
When you're sitting there looking at your budget and you can't say, yes, let's go spend this much money on that guy.
Let's go buy Thierry Henry.
Exactly. Let's go buy this guy. Let's go buy that guy. I think it's a testament that much more to how great these two coaches are.
These two coaches find very creative ways to find players. Like Real Salt Lake, they go down to South America, they get or Central America, get players like Saborio. And then you look at the other side, Sporting Kansas City, they get Yuri Rosell from Barcelona's reserve team.
Yeah.
I mean, those are not places that you would think to go look for players, but very good quality players can be found in places like that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that kind of adds in a scouting side to it as well. So, all right, back to the question. We kind of got sidetracked there. Back to the question, which coach are you taking?
I honestly, I think I'd go with Kreis.
I would as well.
I mean,
It's razor thin.
It's really close. I think when it comes to tactics, Peter Vermees is kind of set in his way of what he wants to happen, and he's not the most keen to making adjustments to what he sees fit going into the match, whereas Kreis, I think, can be more of a better in-game coach.
And with these games, there's always the X factors that you got to lay out. So let's kind of talk about some, like, each of our own X factors and who we think is MLS champion come next weekend. Exciting.
Right.
My X factor, I think you mentioned it earlier, it's got to be the crowd. I feel like you talked about it selling out in minutes, which there's no doubt that it will. Right. I think it's got to be that crowd. It's so hard to play in an atmosphere like that where you've got so many people around you.
Right.
And, you know, these MLS stadiums generally are smaller, more compact venues, people a little closer to the field, so it's even wilder.
Especially with Kansas City.
Exactly. Very close proximity of the fans. They're literally on the field. They're pretty much right there. So I think that's got to be a huge factor for them, and that's why I think they win. They finally get a gold star as opposed to the little silver one that they have for the Wizards. Never forget. Rest in peace, Wizards.
Always never forget the Wizards.
Yeah.
I think the X factor in this game, I'm going to sound a lot like Alexi Lawless right now, is going to be set pieces.
It's a valid point. Real Salt Lake has eaten up corners.
I mean, when they played Portland, especially in that first leg, every corner kick looked like it was going to be a goal.
Was a threat.
I mean, Portland absolutely could do nothing to stop it, and that's ultimately why they lost. Whereas, and when you go into corner kicks, Sporting Kansas City, they're one of the best defensive teams when it comes to corner kicks like that because of their two central defenders, Beasler and Aurelian Collin, both very good in the air, both very composed defenders. I think that's really interesting because Salt Lake is really going to have to change the way where they find goals because it went from cross it in, get set pieces. Now they're going to find something different because you can't just cross it in on Beasler and Collin and get goals.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you got
I've got Kansas City.
Of course you do. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Over Under. Stay tuned. You're watching In the Net.
When it's time to party, we will party hard.
Party hard, ladies and gentlemen.
You know it's a good goal when you can get a coach to ruin $8,000 suit with a knee slide.
What was a very expensive suit. Let's get started with Over Under. First up, 0.7, kind of a weird number, but we're talking about TV ratings for the MLS Cup Final. Last year's was 0.7. Year before that, 0.8. And then let's not even talk about Colorado versus FC Dallas because that was 0.4, and that makes my heart sad a little bit. But do you think it's over under two kind of small market teams like we talked about earlier? So kind of up in the air on that.
I think because it's the two small market teams, like I said, last year's MLS Cup was David Beckham's last game in the MLS. You know that attracted some viewers. That's going to bring some people in. So it won't be 0.4, but because that's just awful. I imagine it'll be somewhere in the
for mathematics. That means only 400,000 households watched. 0.7 would be 700 households.
I don't think it breaks 700,000. I think it'll still be under. But it's something really interesting to look at because now the MLS the past few years has really focused on growing attendance.
Right.
And they've done an excellent job of doing that. Now the next step into making a more sustainable league is growing a TV audience.
Yeah, and you have to wonder maybe if it's like, does attendance mean more than a television rating? Like, how do you weigh those? Not really sure. I think it's interesting because there's still some notable names on these teams. A lot of people know Graham Zusi.
Right.
Beasler getting national team time. People know who he is.
People know Beckerman.
Exactly. And it's going to be,
most famous dreadlocks in
as
America.
usual, on ESPN.
Right.
Maybe people accidentally click into it. I don't
Right.
think it's 0.7.
I mean,
I think maybe 0.6.
We
I'm gonna
also
go under.
remember it's also going up against the SEC championship game. That's a little bit unfortunate.
So let's.
Wouldn't happen if we
fingers
put it in the
crossed,
Friday
let us
before
pray, not
Thanksgiving.
0.4. Up next, a little bit late on this news, but Orlando City coming into the league 2015, making it 21 teams.
Excellent move.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
But the over-under here, 25 teams in the MLS by 2019. At one point, Garber was talking about 26, I think, by 2024. I think was a mark that he said.
I think 2020 wants 24 teams.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a lot of numbers.
A lot going on there. But point is, 25 here by 2019.
I think it's going to be under 25. I think once they get to 24, I think they're going to hold it pretty solid there. Because I think...
Why would you do an odd number?
You can't... Yeah, that's... First of all, that's a terrible thing to do.
So that would just be bad news.
You don't want to grow the league too quickly because then you're diluting the talent pool. You don't have enough good players to go to
Let's not get started
enough teams.
That's another rant for another day.
But
I
think
agree with you.
Garber stops at 24.
Because when's the last time they added a team? And, now they've added Orlando City.
Right.
2019. 4 years from 2015. That's a team a year.
Yeah.
That's kind of...
That's
I can see maybe one if this whole Beckham Miami thing
Yeah, the whole
works
Beckham
out.
Miami thing. And I believe in his State of the League address, he talked about...
Oh, yes, that was today as well.
Yes,
correct?
he said San Antonio...
Watch that.
St. Louis and Minneapolis, I believe, are teams that he's...
St. Louis, awesome soccer area. I would love for them to get an MLS team.
It would be an excellent rivalry for Kansas City. San Antonio also already has a stadium that seats 7,000 now, I believe, with an NASL team, and they already have plans.
Silverbacks. No, that's Atlanta.
That's Atlanta. It's Scorpions.
I should never speak
They
again.
already have plans to make it an 18,000 seat MLS stadium.
Why
So
not?
they've got everything
Another
there
great
in
area.
place.
So I feel like those are good targeted areas, most
Right.
definitely. But I'm with you on the under because that's kind of a
I
rapid.
think they stop it at 24.
That's kind of a rapid growth. Caleb Porter, Portland Timbers. He won Coach of the Year this year, as we said earlier. No problems with that. Do you think he's going to win 2 more over/under Coach of the Year awards for Porter in Portland?
In Portland.
In Portland.
That's interesting. I think
Slow clap it out.
I think the only thing that would stop Caleb Porter from winning Coach of the Year awards in Portland would be if he takes a different job and possibly the national team job.
And wins Coach of the Year there. Interesting point. The thing is, Coach of the Year is for, coaches that take a team and really transform it into something.
Right. If you keep
take
winning.
a team with low expectations and bring it to a high point. So I think heading into this season, obviously the turnaround he had with the Timbers was incredible. The Timbers were awful last year. And all of the moves that he made to build the team that he has now, very impressive. But if you consider going into next season, perhaps the season after that, their expectations are going to be pretty high.
That's true.
So if he has high expectations for this team and he meets those expectations, why would that mean he gets Coach of the Year?
True.
There's probably another coach that
Especially
comes in and changes another team around.
with the parity that's in MLS, it always seems like there's one team that really turns it around.
Exactly. So I think it's possible. If he's there for like another 5 years, why not? It all depends on the timetable. But I'm going to go under at this point with Portland. Up next, it seems like we always have a question about Gareth Bale. I don't know if Brett is secretly a Gareth Bale fan. I'm not sure.
We're going to have to look into that.
He scored his first ever hat trick for Real Madrid. Is he going to get one more by February?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I
think he surpassed that goal total that we had on a previous
That's
over-under.
true.
We may need to check on that. We were probably wrong there. Our bad. But I don't know. I still don't.
I mean, he's capable of doing it. He's definitely
Absolutely.
a good enough player to, but every time we talk about how many goals is Gareth Bale going to score with Real Madrid, I always think about all of the different weapons that they happen to have there.
However, though, take into consideration that most of the teams in La Liga, we always talk about this.
That's true.
Pretty bad.
Once you get to the bottom
maybe they put
half.
up like 6 a game.
Once you get to the bottom half of La
that
Liga,
could be 6
it's
different
pretty
goal
bad.
scorers, or it could be Gareth Bale just
Really, anyone outside
going
the top
crazy.
5.
By February, I'm gonna go under.
Right.
I'm gonna go under on that. Is that where you are?
I think so too.
You're under as well. All right, last one here. We got a little video for you. Over under one more Golazo for our boy Jermaine Yellow Jones. Let's see the video. It's a beaut. First off, let's just talk about how this was filmed in the 1940s.
The quality is not quite a beaut.
The quality not quite as good as the goal, but let's focus on a beauty. Oh my goodness gracious, that's fantastic.
I feel like every goal that Jermaine Jones scores is a beauty.
Epic in
that
every
one
way.
he scored in the Champions League a few months ago, also excellent.
Also excellent. So over under one more golazo by January.
That's
a lot of J's.
Well, are we talking the end of January or the beginning of January?
End of January.
End of January. I'd say
January.
I'd say he gets one more because
I'm going under because it took him this long to get one. So,
it seems like he plays better for Schalke than he does for the national team, though. He's a pretty solid player.
There's a lot of good arguments out there that he should not be starting on the national team.
I mean, he's still probably one of the second most talented defensive mid we have in the pool behind Michael Bradley.
Yeah,
so.
very true. But I'm going to go under on that. However, nice goal, even better footage quality.
Oh,
Where
yes.
do we find that here?
We
Where do we
searched
find that?
up and down all over the
searched
globe.
everywhere in our VHS pile for that bad boy. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're talking about the US of A, Player of the Year, men's and women's, and our Moment of the Year. So stay tuned. You're watching In the Net.
Relax, let us pull up a chair as the dining room proudly presents...
Another brand new episode of the Not So Late Show.
You've been over to the house 3 times.
It is another brand new episode of the Not So Late Show.
This is horrible!
Ready for another Not So Late Show. It is another episode of the Not So Late Show.
Snorts.
Look how we turned out.
We'd like to apologize.
Are you comfortable? Right there, let the groove get in. There, right there. Are you comfortable? Right there, let the groove get in. There, right there. Are you comfortable? Right there, let the groove get in. There, right there. Are you comfortable? Right there, let the groove get in. There, right there. Are you comfortable? Right there, let the groove get in.
Boom boom-ree. I like the boom boom-ree. Till boom-ree.
Loving the robot as usual.
That's a weekly thing.
It never gets old.
It doesn't.
Every single week. We hope you enjoyed it as much
Peter
as we
Crouch,
did.
the greatest.
Let's get right into it, though. USSF, U.S. Soccer Federation, recently had their votes for Player of the Year, men's and women's, and we kind of added in Moment of the Year. Brett's got his. Yeah, he's back. So let's check it out. Brett. All right, so we're just kidding. Brett's actually not here right now.
Oh.
We're going to do ours first, is what we've decided. So my male player of the year, it was kind of tough to decide. Josie Altidore won that vote for U.S. soccer from the fans. I'm going to go with Landon Donovan. I think, without question, he's had an excellent year for the national team. 10 caps, 8 goals, 8 assists as well.
That's very big.
So, he's not just scoring, but he's also assisting, helping out teammates. And his club season wasn't that great. It really wasn't one of his best. But when you're tied for MLS all-time leading scorer,
that's a big deal here.
That doesn't hurt. That definitely doesn't hurt at all. So he had a really good year, I would say.
I mean,
who's your men's player?
I agree with you. I've got Landon Donovan.
Okay.
I mean, 10 goals, 9 assists.
It's hard to argue against that.
And it wasn't one of his best seasons. It was one of the really interesting ones. But I think the thing that makes him the player of the year for me is the impact he had. Excuse me, when he came back.
Don't get choked up now.
When he came back to the national team. Especially
After
that
his,
Gold
what
Cup.
are we calling that?
The-
Hiatus?
The sabbatical.
Sabbatical, that's
the
it.
sabbatical.
Yes,
Once he
sabbatical.
came back from that, it really feels like a lot of people worried if that might affect the national team, but it really seemed to have propelled it even further forward than it otherwise would have, especially because he had such a good performance in that Gold Cup. I mean, we can't forget the the sunglasses incident. That was a wonderful
that
moment
was
this
glorious.
year. Thought about that for a moment.
Interesting thing. We both picked Donovan. We agree on that. Brett disagrees. So he's really here now, I promise.
Are we sure?
So we're going to check out what he has to say. He's also got his women's and moment of the year. We'll do that after.
Good.
We can wait. Brett, take it away.
Hey, thank you very much, guys. No, I'm here to talk to you about the men's and women's players of the year. And as you can see behind me, I'm going to start with the men's. And it is South Carolina Gamecock alum Brad Guzan. Now, I know most people are watching and saying, why aren't you picking Josie Altidore? And hey, you may be right, but I'm going to have to go with Guzan here. When looking at it, he played in goal in the Costa Rica and Mexico game, 2 important games in the U.S. men's national team's World Cup qualifications. Guzan did a fantastic job in Aston Villa, single-handedly keeping them up in the Premier League last season, in my opinion. But you look at his stats, I know 4 caps, but still had some clean sheets mixed in there. The win against Costa Rica and Mexico were the 2 biggest games of the year for the United States. Now, the tie against Mexico and the 1-0 win against Costa Rica, those are huge, huge games for Guzan, and I think that's him showing that he is the best keeper for the United States right now. Now, Tim Howard probably be in goal for the rest of the time to the World Cup, but I think Guzan truly is the best. A fantastic season from Brad. No complaints from me. Did a great job with a young back four heading into Estadio Azteca with Omar Gonzalez and Matt Beasler there. A fantastic job. No complaints from me. Brad Guzan is more deserving than anyone for the U.S. Men's Player of the Year, in my opinion. And moving on, another surprise, actually, and it's a win in the women's division, and it's going to be Kristen Press. I love the way she played throughout the year. 8 goals on the year, played fantastic for Tyreso, and she's a girl that did a fantastic job in the youth systems, in the U23, the U20s. And has really transitioned a great way into the women's national team picture now. She's done a great job linking up with Alex Morgan and Abby Wambach. Done a fantastic job with them. I think she surpassed Sydney Leroux as well. I think Kristen Press is a fantastic player, and of course you can't expect anything less from a Stanford alum. Does a fantastic job. I really think Press is going to impress more this upcoming year. He's probably going to make the World Cup roster in 2015. I really, really, really think she's going to be the future of U.S. soccer, and this year was a great example why. And now moving on to the year, the moment of the year. Is it 2-0 against Mexico? Is it the draw to Estadio Azteca? No, it is the snow fro, ladies and gentlemen. The Costa Rica game had everything you wanted. Great drama, excitement, so much on the line. People thought that Jurgen Klinsmann had lost the U.S. men's national team, and this game was so huge for them in the future. And you look at it, the game was almost delayed at one point in time. A big goal from Clint Dempsey. This was the big catalyst for the U.S. men's national team, and it's something I think that without this, the U.S. really would have struggled throughout the rest of the World Cup qualification. This was the biggest moment of the year, and the U.S. got a 1-0 victory over Costa Rica. Speaking of victories, I think I won this. I had all the correct selections. We'll go back to Rachel and Eric and see what they think.
Interesting stuff there.
I think Tim Howard's beard would like to have a word with Brad on this one.
It most definitely would. But in the women's category, I've got Kristen Press as well. When you consider leading scorer in the Swedish league, no American has ever done that. Incredibly impressive year, and her first cap this year, 2013.
Mm-hmm.
You consider she hasn't been called up before this. Obviously, a lot of fans wondering why, but Pia, a lot of questionable stuff there. So that's why I've got Press. Incredible year. Who do you have?
It's definitely a good way to break into the
without
national
question.
team.
Especially a team as loaded as
I've got Alex Morgan as mine. She's did an excellent job.
Can't go wrong with that.
Did an excellent job in the NWSL. Won the inaugural championship in that league. Got 8 goals, 5 assists. Named to the second best 11, I believe. Mm-hmm. But she's also got 5 goals, and she's really, I think, starting to take the reins from Abby Wambach as she starts to kind of, as she ages and gets out of the spotlight as the national team's best player. I think she is kind of carry that flag from here on out as the head of, as the
scoring,
that figure that a lot of people look forward to.
The face of the women's national team without a question. I think another player that probably deserves a shout out for the women's team, Lauren Holiday, MVP of the NWSL. She's just instrumental in how this team. Yeah, absolutely. So much props to her. She definitely deserves a little shout out. Abby did win the fan vote for U.S. soccer. Why doesn't she deserve it? It's my moment of the year when she broke Mia Hamm's record for most international goals scored, men's or women. What a moment. I will tell you that having followed Mia Hamm my entire childhood, this was a moment for me. I was sitting there in my Mia Hamm jersey, tearing up a little bit.
Hashtag chasing Mia.
Hashtag chasing Mia was terrible. Let's not talk about it. But I was pretty emotional from it. It was a big moment. What was your moment?
My moment, it's got to be Graham Zusi. Putting the knife
free tacos for life
right through Panama. I mean, when you look at him celebrating, the United States celebrating that goal, and you just see the disgust on the Panamanian players' faces as they saved Mexico. I could not absolutely
I don't even
believe
know what that is.
the pandemonium that happened during that game with the Mexican announcers in
Glorious.
tears proclaiming his love for America.
That was pretty great. Yeah, it was a great year in U.S. soccer in general.
It was.
And soccer all around.
Let's
We'll
make
be
next year
back
even better.
Next week with a full hour.
Yes.
Hour. The draw for the World Cup is indeed coming up very soon.
Can't wait.
Exciting stuff. So we will say goodbye to you on this episode. No one's going to kiss the crest because only Brett does that. Thanks for tuning in. You've been watching In the Net.